Greetings. Today we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 6, and it's a sort of a brief passage within the context of Jesus healing and the Sermon on the Plain, which we'll get to next time. But right now I thought I'd break it down because this here this here one little part of the narrative is a standalone I passage, and that's verses 12 through 19, and I'll read them. Now it came to pass in those days that he went out to the mountain to pray, and continued all night in prayer to God. And when it was day, he called his disciples to himself, and from these he chose 12, whom he also named apostles: Simon, whom he also named Peter, and Andrew his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called the Zealot, Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, whom also became a traitor. And he came down with them and stood on a level place with a crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all Judea and Jerusalem and from the seacoasts of Tyre and Sidon, who came to hear him and be healed of their diseases, as well as those who were tormented with unclean spirits, and they were healed. And the whole multitude sought to touch him, for power went out from him and healed them all. Okay, so this is amazing to me because I don't know. They have crusades, they have revivals, they have healing ministries, and they attract these large crowds and everything because people exhaust their whole life savings on what doctors cannot do, which is heal somebody from a terminal type diseases. So that's what Jesus did. He felt compassion for the people who were suffering, and so anyway, the healings that Jesus did were miraculous. I mean, I've been to revivals and things like that, but I've never really seen anything like one person attracting just randomly people from all over the area. Now they promote these revivals with advertising, and they get it on the Christian radio station. Everybody come out. So and so is going to be talking, ministering, and preaching, and um, it's interesting. It's an interesting phenomenon, but I doubt. I'm sorry, I doubt it, but I don't think that many real healings are taking place. Not the way Jesus ministered, anyway. So Jesus spent an entire night in prayer on a mountain before calling his 12 disciples and naming them apostles. This was a prayer, all night in prayer to his Father, because it was a important decision to make, who to choose to be the heirs or the inheritors or the follow-up ministry after he was ascended and gone. So this little verse here uh, tells a lot about Jesus. He was dependent on his Father for the power that was invested in him, and So the composition of the 12 itself reveals Jesus' intentional strategy. The group included fishermen, a tax collector, zealot, and it would be, why would he throw a zealot in the same mix as a tax collector? Because the tax collectors were despised because they collaborated with the Romans, and the zealot, they despised the Romans. So somehow Jesus was able to harmonize this group of diverse people to forge in them the leadership that he had chosen for the future church. And he must have done something right because the church grew, and we have it now today as it is. Like the parable of the mustard seed, it grew into a huge bush. And so, okay, that's about it for that. I just wanted to point that out, that it was a critical juncture in Jesus' ministry that he chose the 12. And it was important for him to carefully consider who to name is amongst the thousands of disciples, who to name to be the 12 apostles. And it turns out that those 12 apostles were the ones who carried the message of the gospel throughout. They spread out. Jesus instructed them in Acts. He said, go forth into Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth, after you receive power from on high in Jerusalem. So Jesus positioned himself on a level place where a massive crowd gathered. Now, it's the same sermon as the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew, but in Luke's account, it's on a plain. It's on, for some reason, Luke saw it differently or heard it differently, which could mean that Jesus gave this teaching more than one time. Like the passage in Matthew's Gospel, chapters 5, 6, and 7, the Sermon on the Mount, that may not have been a one-off thing. It might have been that Jesus repeated the same message on a different in a different location in the eyes of a different writer. So there's a possibility of that, yes. Um, this healing ministry wasn't incidental to Jesus' message, it was integral to it. Rather than treating spiritual and physical dimensions as separate concerns, Jesus wove them together inseparably, understanding that the spiritual embodied itself in the physical. The geographically diverse crowd, encompassing both Jewish and Gentile populations, received Jesus' mention without discrimination or favoritism. The structural significance matters here. Luke's Luke sequences the calling of the 12 immediately before this healing and teaching scene, demonstrating that Jesus' covenant relationship with Israel's historic community extended simultaneously to all peoples and nations. By emphasizing the descent from the mountain, the manifestation of power, and the crowd's desire to hear his message, Luke highlights how Jesus' authority operated through both miraculous action and proclamation. So, this was when Jesus' popularity was at its height. The movement of his ministry was in Galilee to begin with, and people from all over the region would come to see him. But the I'm sorry, I got distracted here. Um, yeah, Jesus' ministry was throughout Galilee, but it was always in motion towards Jerusalem. In the Gospel of Mark and in Matthew both, you'll see that he said several times. He said, "I must go up to Jerusalem. I'm going up to Jerusalem. I'm on my way to Jerusalem." So he goes through Samaria, but that's in John's Gospel, I believe, and he goes from Galilee down to Jerusalem. But people from all over all over Palestine were coming to see him and be healed of him, and so there's that. And next time we'll cover the Sermon on the Plain, which is the same as the Sermon on the Mount, only Luke's version is a little different. But just look ahead and read ahead in chapter 6 because there's a lot of content in the next passage that we're going to look at, and we'll discuss the difference between Matthew's Sermon on the Mount and Luke's Sermon on the Plain then. So we'll tackle that next time. So thanks for listening and have a good day.